Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Last week, it was Matteo Cuenza who took the first win of the Season's 8 in the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup. Tonight, we head to Silverstone as 35 drivers seek to gain invaluable experience on the international layout for this week's PESC Qualifiers Series. I am Sam Fitzpatrick. Alongside me, returning from last week, is Chad Dick, and Samuli Kumo is bringing you this stream on Apex Racing TV. Chad, it's fantastic to have you alongside me for this round. We know and we learnt very much last week just how competitive this series is. We have got several drivers over 7k. In fact, I believe there's 10 of them over 7k. A couple new ones as well joining for this week. We've got past champions as well. It's a fantastic strength of field. And so I'm looking forward to see what these drivers can tackle on this slightly unusual and unused layout of Silverstone.
Oh, 100%, I agree. This is a fun little layout. Shortens the track by about half the length, and unlike last week, which was a tight, technical, twisty track, I expect the wide track here and some of the long straights to produce some drafts and a few more overtakes than we saw last week. So if you thought last week was exciting, buckle up. I think we're in for a little bit more this week.
Yeah, and we can check out what the championship order was from the first round of the championship. Matteo Cuenza managing to get both race wins, a perfect 130 points going to him. Leon Rudinja in second place, followed by Scully in white, and Michael Yanni as well there in P5. In the Pro-Ams, of course, 3 championships in this race. Well, 4 really, because we've got the team's championship as well. Lewis Bilicki is at the top of that one. His brother actually signed up for this round of the championship as well, but only 1 point clear of Hammer and Costas, ever so close in the Pro-Ams. And in the AMs, there was only one man who was able to get through into the A final. He profited big time. It was Thorsten Seifert. Nico Vischer, though, after a strong heat result, managing to tie him at the top of the standings. Saul, Humphrey and Araya not too far behind. Chad, it was quite sort of predictable in a way last time that we only had one amateur driver being able to break through into that A final. Do you expect there to be any more amateurs in the A final tonight, or do you think we might even get 0 AMs in the final race of the evening?
Well, you know, that's why they say you got to run the race, because anything can happen with this car on any track. Incidents are bound to happen. It's a difficult car to control. I think we're going to see higher speeds here and a lot more contested corners. So if we saw 1 last week, we could see 5 this week, but we could also see 0. So I think it really is anybody's race until we start to see the action on track and how drivers are handling the conditions and the fellow competitors.
Well, we're currently in the qualifying session, which will be the first stage for these drivers. And I think last week we saw many drivers go for a double warm-up lap, but it is risky around the circuit. Very easy to pick up a 1x. Not big deterrence from going off the circuit. And it's not the grippiest track either, so you're constantly sliding out. But currently it's Berger Zine held at the top, quickly beaten though by Baliki and then also White. But Roger Christensen now goes to the top, and last week's winner, Mete Cuenza, getting up there. And Malte Roma, the Danish driver, currently holding the top a bit. There are still other drivers to set times.
Yeah, I think the corner to watch out for is the final corner coming into the final straight. I noticed that this car, if you get a little too eager and happy on the throttle, it's easy to get some oversteer right onto that straight, and that can mess up your last lap and screw up your next lap. So it'll be really interesting to see how they set up their hot laps here.
Yeah, let's see how well Rudinger has been able to line up. Really competitive last week. He's got a big opposite slide there, trying to keep it within the white lines. How good is this lap for him? It's good enough for pole position. And 700ths of a second, dare I say, that is a margin. He dips into the 1 minute threes. And that was a real nice time. And you could tell he was pushing the circuit right to the edge of adhesion whenever possible. Bob Humphries, I think, pushed it a little bit too far there. Maybe picking up a 1x. And you can see he's holding a trophy there because he has previously won an Apex Racing League trophy, I believe. I'm not entirely sure, actually. I should know this about Bob. But I think he has. He certainly has some very good results. He was back in Season 1. I remember he finished P3 in Season 1 in the Pro category. Just demonstrates the strength of drivers we have for this season. Bob is one of the top amateurs. Chase Robertson crossing the line. Still got a couple more to cross. And Robertson moves up to 25th. Your fellow countryman there having a better second lap right there.
Well, I'm sure, the Americans have a little bit of a challenge here as this is not their home track. I would expect the Europeans to flourish here, especially the Brits. It was funny, last week we saw lots of German flags at the top of the list because we were at Hockenheim. It'll be curious to see if we see that Union Jack. Luke McCown there currently in P4. See if we start to see home field advantage or not here.
Still got a couple more to cross the line. Unfortunately, no Brits. Paul Joseph Clist completing his lap times. But we have still got Laurent Benzo and Nick Madsen. Madsen new for this round, as we also run on board with Tim Baliki, who is new to the series. He signed up less than an hour ago. But the great admins at Apex Racing League quickly getting him in to the session. And he's currently 23rd place, but this could be good enough for pole position. It's not going to be good enough because he's already used both lap times, so this isn't going to be an improvement for him, but he's just trying to get a little bit more experience out there. But Nick Madsen just crossing the line as well. He goes to 21st, but Madsen does still have another lap. I don't think it's going to be a very good one, though, if that's the way that he starts it. And apart from Laurent Benzo, is everyone across the line, and Benzo, dare I say, isn't going to improve either.
Well, as I was telling you guys just before we joined the air here, I took a few laps on this server just to see what the conditions were like before we came onto the broadcast, and the best I could do was a 105 flat. So these guys are a full second better. Obviously, they've got customized setups. I was using a fixed setup, so it's a little different conditions potentially there, but I'm impressed by the pace we're seeing already.
Yeah, and it's warm out there as well. 36 degrees track temperature, 22 degrees air temperature. It does get warmer than that in the UK, especially in July. Not this July. It's been very cold. And once again, my admiration goes out to all the Europeans who are driving, who have experienced a pretty bad heat wave. I think it might be getting a little bit better now, but I'm not entirely sure. But it's been pretty bad over there. So thanks, guys, for continuing to race and putting in the miles. And hopefully your patience and your efforts can yield a good result tonight. We are just waiting for the qualifying to tick over, but of course our format for this series is 2 heats, a B final and an A final. The top 8 going straight through to the A final from both heats, and then the top 4 also going through from the B final. So it's a 20 car A final. We have 35 cars signed up for tonight, 3 more than last week. Hopefully all of them will take the grid, and so it will be very tough for the drivers to get into the A final. Dare I say, a couple of pros may miss out. I think a couple of pro-ams might miss out as well. Well, they definitely will miss out because there simply aren't enough spots for them. Leon Rudinger at the top of the Heat 1 grid then, followed by Roger Christiansen. Then it's Pascal Costa, Matteo Cuenza, Parker White. Top of the pro-ams is Aidan Young, followed by Dan Holland, Luis Belicki, Thiago Pereira, Corey Lazarus, Nick Madsen way down there. Madsen should be way higher than that in 11th place, former champion of course. Then it's Glenn Humberston in 12th place, top of the ARMS for this event. And then it is Bob Humphrey, Chase Robertson, Tom Stevens, Jay Walsh, Maximilian Koschendorfer, and Paul Joseph Clist, rounding out the 18 cars. Only 8 of them going through for this first heat, Chad.
I love this format because beyond just doing a hot lap in qualifying, you got to prove yourself in 10 minutes of heat racing. So add some racecraft to the hot lappers, and we really start to separate the field apart. So you've got our 2 heats here to get to the top 16 that'll go into the final, and then there's that consolation race of 14 laps, which is sort of a second chance. So anybody who maybe didn't get through in the first 2 heats can get through in that consolation feature, or to try and make it to the feature. And so in a great way, it really helps bring the quality to the top. So I think we'll be in for a fantastic final of 22 laps at the end.
Yeah, well, it's even longer tonight. I think it's 28 laps for tonight's feature because it's that much of a shorter lap. Of course, to best prepare the drivers for the PESC qualifiers, the A final is the same length as the PESC qualifiers race. And so, yeah, we match that each round of the series. And so, yeah, an even longer event. It's tough around this international circuit. Dare I say, not the most enjoyable. When they head to Imola later on in the season, that'll be an absolute blessing to practice around. But tonight will be a little bit trickier. But it's Rudinger on the pole position, looking to get a good launch on the long run to turn 1. We are away racing at Silverstone. It's a post up for Cuenza, I think a little bit further down the order. It's a post up for second place as well. Christensen is plummeting through the order. We will have a couple of 3 wide scenarios into turn 1. So it's Rudinger leading the way. Good start for Parker White. Good start as well for Dan Holland, leader now of the Pram category. He's immediately got past Aidan Young, but it's very tight in the background with a bit of locking up as well for one of the Wave Italy cars. I think there's a couple of drivers just dropping down. Pereira having a tough one. Cuenza after that awful start, championship leader down to 9th, not even getting through to the A final as it stands. But they've done a very good job at limiting the contact, as Bob Humphrey has taken the lead of the amateurs as well. He's got ahead of Glenn Humberston.
Yeah, some fantastic racing. I mean, they built up a huge head of steam and then had to hit into that slow right-hander on cold tires. A little bit of lockups here and there, but everybody kept it clean, and looks like we're all running except for one.
Ooh,
well, just as I say that, I curse the grid.
And the Evo SR cars giving one hit to the left, then one hit to the right to Humberston, who was looking to take the lead in the amateurs. And we've actually had 3 different leaders now in the amateurs. It was Humberston, then Humphrey, and now Stevens, albeit Stevens and Humphrey, both teammates. They were the 2 Evo SR cars who got either side of the 88 Tech racing driver of Humberston, and he went round soon after. But Rudinger, one of the few drivers who is still in the same place as they started, because there was a couple of awful starts. I initially saw Cuenza with a poor start, but really the worst start was Christiansen, and Christiansen's lost another place now. He's down to 6th. He's dropped behind Aidan Young, who's trying to keep tabs with the Pro-Am leader of Dan Holland. So Christiansen, who's usually a very reliable pair of hands, having an absolute mare at the start of the season.
Well, I'd like to say it's a long race, but it's only 10 minutes. So I think, you know, unlike last week where they had to be patient and line up, here I think because of the wide track, the fast speeds, and a lot of these slow corners, we're going to see a lot of aggressive moves into some of these turns to try and make back up positions.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be one of the trickier circuits as well to take. Maybe a bit easier than Hockenheim, to be fair, because of course at Hockenheim you kind of lose that big braking zone at turn 6. Instead you have that awkward cut through because we're using the national layout. Here, not quite a big braking zone again, but at least you do have those longer straights as you identified earlier on, as Cuenza makes an important move there on Corey Lazarus, and that is done. Lazarus a car length behind now, and so Mateo Cuenza is at least getting through into the A final, but it does just demonstrate the incredible kind of valuation of this grid. That's our championship leader and a driver with 7,500 iRacing is still barely making it through into the A final right now, but he's got ahead of Lazarus. That's the least he wanted to do, and now he will try in the remaining 7 minutes to get up into the top 5 if he possibly can do so.
That was fantastic camera work and a driver's point of view of what it actually takes to be brave on the brakes in this car. Mere mortals might have locked up the wheels there, and he did a nice job of carrying his momentum and speed into the corner without locking up the brakes and got the pass done.
Yeah, so much control over the machine. I will say it's a little bit easier with the 992 machine. I do very much miss the old model of the Porsche Cup because that thing was an absolute nightmare on the grids, constantly just sliding in. Remind me of a sort of a junior level karts. In fact, pretty much any karting really. But constantly sort of locking up the brakes and sliding into every corner. That was a lot of fun back in the day. But this 992 car isn't bad either. Pereira up to 12th place, so Bob Humphrey's dropped back a bit. I wonder if he had a separate incident, Humphrey, because I feel like he was close to the back of Stevens. It's all fairly spread out, actually, from 11th place onwards. But there goes Pereira, just trying to get up another place. That's an extra point for him and an extra position as well on the grid for the B final, because I feel like from the position he's in, very unlikely to get into the top 8 from here.
And just behind these guys, we've got an interesting storyline developing of a Yankee amongst Brits. All of the AMs are sort of lined up there with an American Robertson right in the middle of 4 or 5 different Brits. So that'll be an interesting one to watch as well.
Yeah, a couple of them doing well in the top 5. All contacts with Cuenza, who's still making up positions after that poor start. He's now got past Balicki. That's sort of the move that you got to go for, and now Balicki is very much under pressure from behind. Lazarus and Madsen know that this is crucial positions. An 8th position would go a long way, as Holland actually has got past White further up the road, so now got Dan Holland up into 3rd place. What a storming run he is having tonight, and Madsen was able to get past Lazarus in all of that as well, so still Balicki is in that top 8 into the A final as it stands. But yeah, I mean, you were mentioning maybe a home track advantage for the British driver as well. Holland is absolutely using that. He's overtaken Parker White, a driver of 5,000 iRating, passing a driver of 9,000 iRating.
Indeed. You know, I think in addition to this format separating the field beyond just what they can put down in a hot lap, what I love about the top 8 is that really means, you know, the top 10 or 11 drivers are all still fighting for some meaningful position, unlike a traditional just top 3 podium. You see some great battles in the middle of the grid here because people are trying to make it on to the feature final. So that's fantastic that we have 18 drivers on track, and you know, certainly the top 12 are all fighting for a meaningful position here.
Yeah, it is really fantastic. The excitement out here, and as you say, the importance of every single position. As here comes Madsen, probably the most important position of them all. There's contact between the two of them, and Lazarus goes through and is up into the top 8 for the first time. Mighty work there from Corey Lazarus just to pick up the pieces. Looks like Madsen a little bit of contact on the rear quarter panel there, and it slowed them both up, and Lazarus was able just to take his normal racing line and is up into the top 8 for the first time tonight.
Excellent example of exercising patience. We see it happening right here as these two are battling. He just slips right on through and says, "Thank you very much, I'll take those 2 spots."
Yeah, just a little bit patient on the throttle, and he pulled it off brilliantly. So Madsen's got to do it all over again now. We go for the dive here. Lazarus is getting away. He's up to a 2nd clear. Madsen felt like this was fairly simple. It was just a overtake away. He was a few meters away from being able to get past Balicki and would have been truly home and free with the pace he's got. Instead, he's going to have to do it the hard way. But this is going to be 1 position back for him. For 9th position for the Season 1 champion, for 3rd position back in Season 7 as well, to make contact through Stowe for the 2nd time in the same number of laps. And again, he has to go the long way round through Club and then into Vale. and this is losing each other a lot of time, and still Madsen can't quite get the exit. There's almost contact between the two of them for the third time in the past couple of kilometers, and Madsen's chances are being obliterated as Pereira catches up to these guys rapidly. They've been alongside now for half a lap.
I would say, as a spectator, this is exactly what you sign up to see with this car on this track configuration in these heats. It's producing some pressure to go side by side and fight for those positions that in a longer race you might work together. You might draft off of one another, but they don't have the time to afford that in this format. So that's why we see them forcing the issue here, and these long straights produce these drafts, and then we get these side by sides into the corner. Just fantastic racecraft being displayed here.
Here comes Beliki again. I think Madsen should have this one covered off, but, well, you know what? Actually has got alongside. They're both off the circuit. There was probably a slowdown already being picked up there, and they're both around, and that has both really ruined their chances because they will be way down the order when it comes to the B final grid later on. And it was getting a bit personal between the two of them. Either of them will make it through, and Pereira will take pole position for the B final. Further up, I think there was a change between Cuenza and Young. Christensen in 7th position as it stands, but Cuenza managing to get past Aiden Young, ends up into the top 5, which is pretty much as high as he could have imagined after being as low as 9th a couple of minutes into this race.
Yeah, he's sort of Mr. Stealth today, just quietly climbing his way back up the grid, got his way back up to P5, running a solid race. That was an unfortunate incident back there, probably a good illustration of the difference between sim racing and real life racing. Looked like the front right quarter panel just got glued a little bit to the rear quarter panel, and then, caused a little bit of an incident there. In real life, maybe they would have bounced off each other and it would have been a little less severe, but, that's the nature of the game. And, some really good hard racing. You can see him obviously fighting for position.
Here it was again. And if Madsen not leaving enough room, there's sort of that initial contact. Yeah, I think Madsen may have been pushing a little bit too far there. And of course, going that wide, going to potentially pick yourself up a slowdown as well. So you really are in trouble when you're on the outside in that snow. The white flag is now being waved. So this is the last lap of the race. And Udinja, haven't really seen him all day long. But he's just had this gap for the whole time. This is pretty much as small as it's been so far in this race. 1.5 tenths gain for Costa on the last lap. He gained a 10th at the start of this lap as well. But I feel like there's going to be no mistake from the German. No alliances, I think, between these two separate teams. You race ARA Esports by Red Dragon and Impulse Racing. But even for a man of Costa's talents, he can't send it into Vale. And just with a couple of corners to go, it's going to be a fantastic start to the evening for Leon Runinger. He managed to take the overall pole position, and he's going to take the Heat 1 victory as well, and pole position for the A final. A great start for the German drivers. Beats Costa. The rest of the drivers will come through. Holland top of the Pro-Ams. Humphrey is going to be top of the Ams, but won't get straight through. Corey Lazarus, with a very smart drive, beats out Pereira, and he will be delighted to get up into the top 8. He will start in 15th place for the A final, and I think maybe the biggest overachiever from this first race, Chad.
Yeah, I think we're seeing with this high caliber and class of driving, it's consistency that's rewarded. These guys, just one of the reasons we don't talk about him much is because he jumped out to a lead and maintained it. So he knew that he was racing for the qualification into the feature, played it smart, maintained his position, earned his spot. Maybe the gloves will come off in the feature, but very, very nice racing there to set up our first heat.
Yeah, and just in a few minutes' time, Paul Joseph Clist will cross the line, and he has done now. And that will be our first heat complete. And just like that, we transfer over to the second heat. This one with 17 drivers being parts of it. Malte Roma on pole position. Luke McCowan, new driver to the series, but of course, former Apex Racing League GT driver from years back. Luke McCowan, and of course, very successful Apex Racing team driver as well. Of course, won the British F4 Esports Championship last year. Mario Velgerts in 3rd position. There's Michael Yanni. Philip Hammer top of the Pro-Ams, followed by Kos, Ferreira, Jerry Zinheld, and Daniel Sedgley. Thorsten Seifert, Pedro Espadina, Tim Balicki in 12th. There's Kev Copeland, Joseph Saul, Simon Huber, Laurent Benzo, and Kai Dalziel, rounding out the 17 cars. Everyone is on the grid, and wait to see if we're going to see the same similar starts to what we had in Heat 1. Heat 2 is underway. It's a strong start for Roma, immediately trying to cover off the Apex Racing team driver on the inside. Velgut, though, with a real good launch from third position, isn't able to do much with it. And in fact, it will be Yanni who moves up into the top 3. Behind them, Sedgley and Espadina immediately out into the gravel. They'll have a lot of catching up to do.
Wow, what a fantastic jump and start from P2 and 3 there. They just got a better start. If you're sitting in the pole position, you see two cars coming up that fast. It's like, which side are you going to take? He took the inside line, then switched back to the outside, and just a really good fight at the start there. That's what's fun to watch with these standing starts and these P-Cups. It's an overlooked skill to be able to drop the clutch and get the car started quickly. And if you get it wrong, boy, you can get eaten up.
Oh, there's contact now between a few drivers. I got Koss running wide. They were all making a beeline to the inside of the circuit. And with 3 drivers there, it was going to be messy. I wonder if Koss has got a slowdown as well. Yeah, he's having to brake very early. He was so wide at Stowe. And on lap 1, that's going to cost him particularly badly. He might even be in last position, even though that slowdown's not actually too bad on the most part. But even on lap 1, it's going to be quite debilitating. Seems like he's back up to full speed. So, and also a slowdown as well for the 199 of Benzo, who crucially drops down. I wonder if he picks up one at Stowe as well, and all of a sudden having to slam on the brakes to do his best to serve it.
Yeah, I like to call those Senna slowdowns in my head, because those are areas of the track that have been widened post the fatality that Ayrton Senna had at Imola. And, you know, people think it's a bad thing. It's a good thing, right? They put that slowdown area there so that you could track out wide. And if all you walk away with is a slowdown rather than the end of your race, I think that's actually a better outcome. So that's track design working as it's supposed to.
As Igor Koss, unfortunately his race not ending right there, but using the tarmac and the gravel to slide into. And he drops to the back. So still the top 6 are pro drivers. Top 2 in the same order as they were, but Yanni got past Velgut, Faria and Jerry Zeineld managing to get past Philip Hammer on lap 1. And of course Igor Koss started up in 6th place. He's now last. Sedgley started in 9th. He's now 16th. Nespadina started 11th. He's in 15th. They're the big changes so far in this race. But Roma is not pulling away the same way we saw our race leader in Heat 1 pull away. And the 2 Apex Racing team drivers looking very content and very competitive sat behind him. There are a couple of overtaking opportunities. And Mayor Velga as well, despite that fantastic launch, pretty much launched better than anyone's, wasn't in the great position though, heading into turn 1. He's hanging on to the back of this lead trio.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all by this top 7. If we go back to last week, these guys all showed some fantastic pace and racecraft. They were all contending at one point in time. In some ways, you know, if incidents happen, this could be anybody's race on the top 7, but they're all nose to tail for a reason, because they've got the skills and the pace and the racecraft to get there.
Yeah, the difference in qualifying between the times we did demonstrate, I think pretty much the top 10 separated by less than a quarter of a second. And we are seeing it once again here. Yanni, I wonder if he's any faster than Mechanicals. Both these guys going for the pro license. Pretty much all of these pros, bar a couple, are taking part in the PESC qualifiers. And this series is a really good way for them to race against drivers who they might well race against when it really matters on Saturday. In similar size grids, and of course with the exact same conditions and the exact same circuit as well. And it does really put them in a good place, because you can practice as much as you like, but in order to go pro, you absolutely need the racecraft, and that is what these drivers are learning all about right now. Further down, we've got Benzo after that slowdown. He's picking his way through. He's got past Baliki and Cypher, who was the only amateur to get through from the to the A final last week. It's looking like he will be the first amateur driver to progress tonight, potentially not the only one. However, the Frenchman is looking very quick behind. On that last lap, he was half a second faster, was Benzo. Well, 0.3 of a second faster, apologies. I feel like the German of Cypher isn't going to have a chance to hold on to that 8th place, honestly.
I think it's going to be a stressful 5.5, 6 minutes here for him. He's got some action there in his rearview mirror. He's doing a good job holding them off, but this is over the long haul. That's where the class rating and the iRatings can separate one another. It's just those tenths here and there can add up, and the next thing you know, somebody can find themselves in a position to complete the overtake.
Yeah, and I think it might be as soon as Stowe. Really nice launch off the cut through for Seifert, and apologies for Benzo. It was Seifert who had the worst launch, and Benzo moves up into 8th position. Nice work from the man who started in 16th in this race, and he was up so many places and then got a slowdown on lap 1. But the pro driver, I think, pretty much messing up his qualifying laps, maybe picking up 1Xs, maybe going for a warm-up on the first lap, and then messing up on his truly one and only chance. And he is up into 8th place, so all our pros progressing as it stands. He's got 3.5 seconds to catch up to Philip Hammer. I seriously doubt that's going to happen. You can see for yourself, it's quite far away, as there goes Luke McCowan for the lead of this race. He has got past Roma. He was waiting behind for 5.5 minutes, but now on lap 6 of this race, he has used it, and he has gone around the outside at turn 3. Not exactly how I thought it would be done, but it's the Apex Racing team driver who now leads this Heat 2.
Yeah, that's a very difficult corner to complete an overtake in, because you're right on the limit, and to go on the inside or go too wide through there it just takes everything to keep the car under control and, not lose it yourself, let alone take somebody else out. So that was a brilliant pass.
Oh, is there going to be a little bit of response? He breaks very late, does Roma. He was taking an early apex into Stowe, and he's sort of done a similar thing there with Vale. And it could well be useful for him, but honestly, it does look like McCowan has been the faster driver so far tonight. The way that he was able to stay so close to the Danish driver for this entire race, and you can just see now there's about a car and a half length to P2, as Roma again goes for that very sort of unorthodox early apex, but it is losing him time on the exits, and McCowan is starting to pull away. It'll be Michael Yanni, the American, who'll be desperate to get up into that second place. Not only a few points extra for that, but also 2 positions on the starting grid for the A-final.
Yeah, Rummer's in that unenviable position where he's playing offense and defense simultaneously. As you pointed out, when you play defense and you have to compromise your line, then you're going to give up to the guy in front.
Yeah, those early turns, yeah, they are working well, as you say, for the defensive. But yeah, it doesn't look like, or it doesn't look likely that he will be able to retake the lead. I will give a quick shout out, by the way, to our series title sponsor, Apex Racing Academy. Of course, Apex Racing Academy offering data packs for several different cars on iRacing, whether that be for Rallycross, whether that be for the Porsche Cup, whether that be for single-seaters or GTs or tin tops. Pretty much everything covered by Apex Racing Academy with their data packs, which include setups and track guides and B-laps and O-laps and pretty much all the data you could possibly want in order to improve, along with group coaching sessions and also solo coaching sessions to get sort of teaching from some of the best iRacers in the world. So do check out apexracingac.com in order to sign up for a bronze, silver or gold membership, as we watch the Pirate Academy driver of Julian Jerry Zeineld moving his way through past the Brazilian of Faria there, but Faria is trying to stay in there. They've left enough room for each other. Respectful racing. This is inviting Philip Hammer to invite on this as well, but there's now a huge contact between the two of them. Faria is into the wall, and I wonder where Jerry Zeineld as well managed to hold on. He was able to keep it in a straight line. Hammer goes through past the pair of them, and Thorsten Seifert is back in to the top 8 positions, and it looks like we aren't going to have all our pros advance after all.
Yeah, that just goes. I mean, they're obviously right on the edge, and just a little bit of contact can send the car off. No ABS, no ABS, no TC. When the car starts moving sideways, it's really hard to save it. So that's just an unfortunate consequence of very, very close, hard racing there. Sorry to see that happen, but this configuration of this track with these cars, it's just nobody thinks of Silverstone is kind of a quick, fast-paced short track, but this configuration is, and so we've got 3 corners between Stowe, Vale, and going into the loop, where the cars are coming in hot off of a long straight, and they're all hard braking to try and make those overtakes. So I'm not surprised we're seeing more of that than we did last week, but you know, it's kind of the trade-off between competitive close racing on a fast sweeping track like this and you know, one that's a little bit more technical where you got to line up and be patient like last week.
Yeah, as we see Dalziel there, I think that was just a move for him. Yep, getting past Tim Balicki. So Dalziel now up to 9th position, the Canadian driver. Great to see so many different nationalities being represented. Of course, being a weekday evening, often don't have a whole lot of Americans, and you know, that includes both North and South. But it is awesome to see so many of those flags being waved in this race by some very competitive drivers. Out in the lead, Luke McCohen, 4.5 tenths of a second clear. It's not usually a comfortable race victory when it's 4.5 tenths of a second clear, but honestly, ever since that move at the midway stage, he has been unstoppable, and it will be a front row start for him come the A final. And in his first heat in Apex Racing League for many years, Luke McCohen managing to take the race win ahead of Malte Roma and Michael Yanni. Philip Hannemer will progress as a Pro-Am, the only Pro-Am to progress, and Thorsten Seifert once again reaching the A final, this time straight through from his heat, the only amateur driver to do so. The German taking some big points there, and guaranteed some big points for that final race of the evening. Dalziel just missing out. He'll start on the front row for the B final. I mean, McCohen looks extremely quick there, as already we are progressing once again, and this time it is the B final. And on pole position, it's going to be Tiago Pereira, followed by Dalziel. Then it's both Balicki's. My goodness, how confusing. Come on, guys. At least be on other ends of the circuit. Oh, man, this is going to be awful. Bob Humphrey lines up in 5th position. Then it is Joseph Saul, Nick Madsen, Kev Copeland, Tom Stevens. Oh, that's pretty much all of those guys were part of Season 1. Incredible stuff. Daniel Sedgley lines up in 10th place. There's Chase Robertson, Simon Huber, Glenn Humberston, Pedro Espadina, Jay Walsh, Igor Koss, Paul Joseph Clist, Bernardo Ferrari, and I don't think Maximilian Koschendorfer will take to the grid. Who's your money on for this race, Chad?
Oh, this is going to be exciting. I mean, we have Kai, who made it into the final just this exact same way last week, so I think he's in good position. The Bielicki brothers, if they hold station, maybe they can work together and sort of lock out the cars behind. But you look at somebody like Nick Madsen, a past champion, he's sitting back there. This, you know, we got a lot of drivers fighting for 4 spots here. Let's keep an eye on the top 4.
Here we go then. Great start for Pereira from pole position. He's able to take a normal racing line. So too really are the top 3. And even Bob Humphrey with a nice start. He's already got past one of the Balickis. In fact, the other Balicki has had an awful start because he is further down. But there goes Igor Koss again involved in an incident. And he's got a lot of catching up to do. It's a 14-minute race, much longer than the heat. But it's still not easy. Robertson had to go back to the pits. Kev Copeland is off into the wall. He'll be able to continue. But his chances of getting through to the A final are very much dashed now, as Tom Stevens is also involved. He's actually down 1 place, is Tom Stevens. Tim Balicki with a very poor start. Wasn't an awful launch for Balicki, but losing a couple of places soon after. Look at the move there from the Olympus Esports driver Sedgley, but he's gone way too deep. I mean, that's almost like Schumacher back in '99, honestly, how late he's broken, and Schumacher didn't have any brakes that day. Olympus Esports absolutely in ruins right there, and Sedgley after looking like it would be a nice double overtake, it has been anything but. So Humphrey holding on to that top 4 place, but he's got the very quick Season 1 champion Nick Madsen lined up right behind him.
Yeah, we're starting to see again some of the consequences of this. These drivers know this is their last chance to make the feature final, and so very aggressive at the start. And on lap 1, I think we see people trying to make some moves that on cold tires coming in hot can lead to disaster there. So sort of, you know, Glory's last chance here for some of these drivers, and they're pushing it pretty hard.
Yeah, and Bob Humphrey just locking up a tyre there, running wide at the turn 3 hairpin, loses out to Balicki and to Madsen crucially. So that's now our top 4, and as it would stand, it would again be Thorsten Seifert as the only amateur driver to get into the A final. Absolutely incredible stuff, which is lining up again, and what a nice lead that would be for Thorsten in the championship. if he could do that. There goes Madsen. He's not happy with 4th place. No points if you're in the top 4. You score point. I mean, top 5th gets points. 4th doesn't get points, but of course, if you finish 4th, you get points for the A final because you're guaranteed to go through. So it's just a position on the grid, but Madsen desperately wants it. Jay Walsh off the circuit at Vale rejoins that club. Sergi will be in amongst that one. Where is he? I knew that was going to be tricky because it's going to be a very narrow corner. And also the 228 of Kos moving past as well. Both Sergi and Kos would have fancied their chances of getting through, but after their race starts, it's looking very far away. They're 13 seconds off the lead already.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, we got kind of a double fight going on here. Those trying to make it to the final feature, and those who are then knowing that this may be where their race ends today, going for maximum points. So one way or another, whether you're making the final feature or not, you're pushing real hard here in this part of the heat structure.
Yeah, many drivers, knowing that, particularly if you're in the amateurs, I mean, you can't expect to get into the A final consistently. So this is really where the points properly matter, where the big points are available. A few more points available for the B final and A final than the heats. 80 points for the A final victory, only 50 points for a heat victory, for example. And that very much runs all the way down the positions. So Kos looking faster than Sedgley. Both have had their issues so far. Kos just set in the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 4.87. Albeit, what I would say is that Madsen's just done a 1 minute 4.38, but I think he went off the circuit. He picked up a 1x, so it hasn't come up purple on our screen. Porsche Cyclist, he's under the radar. He's had a nice race, actually, as Porsche Cyclist. He's up 6 places from his start. Of course, regular in many of our series. Pedro Espedina has just overtaken him, however. Espedina up into 10th place, up 4 places from his race starts. But still, those top 4 places fairly secure. 2.2 seconds between the Balicki brothers. And so, hopefully, I know that their mum is on the line or something and telling Tim, play second fiddle and let's get some pride into the family name and let Luis get through, because his brother could act as a nice rear buffer in this position.
Yeah, you'd hope that the brothers would leapfrog one another, but I wonder if they've got some kind of a family tiebreaker principle. You know, what do they do when things get really, really close, or they're fighting to the finish line? Is it the oldest that gets to go first? The one with the higher I rating? I wonder what the criteria is.
The one who moans the most, I imagine, might win out. Well, at the moment, there's 2.4 seconds between them, so I hope that's a reason enough for Luis to keep it. Humphrey not necessarily with the pace to put a whole lot of pressure. Once again, I think Bob was fairly close to getting through to the A final last time, and it looks like he's going to narrowly miss out for the 2nd week in a row. To keep an eye though on Nick Madsen. Madsen is one of the more aggressive drivers, as we saw in his heats earlier on. He won't stay in 3rd position. He will go for it, and so often we're seeing when it comes to these B finals in various leagues, whether it be F3, F4, Porsche Cup, and many others, as we see a move here for Jay Walsh. That would be a nice overtake at the corner that he went off the circuit earlier on. Hasn't quite been able to do it though. And this is Simon Huber on his first ever Apex Racing League event, I believe. And Huber in 14th place. He's having a nice battle with Walsh, and Faria is at the back of this one. I do expect the Brazilian to make his way through within the next couple of laps.
Yeah, he had that incident earlier on that sent him down the field, so he's probably going to be looking to make some places back up and get as many points as he can after that unfortunate coming together. I'd also point out we've got Humberstone at Silverstone making quite a good move today. He's up 5 spots and battling with some of his fellow countrymen there for P7 he's getting close to. So quite some good action throughout the grid, not just at the top, middle, and bottom. We're seeing battles all throughout.
I do think Silverstone is one of the best names for a circuit in the world. Let's know on chat if you think there's any other good ones. Another good one, Laguna Seca. I think Laguna Seca is a really cool name for a circuit. My very elongated point is basically it would be very contradictory for me to say that Humberston isn't a good surname. So I would say that Glenn has got a good name there. But Silverstone, I don't know, maybe it's just what you attach to it, but it's pretty cool. Then it's Joseph Salt in 7th place. He's 1 place down from his race start, a little bit by himself for eBay SR Black. About 2.7 seconds behind his teammates Bob Humphrey. Further back, there goes Ferreira. Managed to get past Walsh at that corner lap ago. He's got past Hubert this time. He could still catch up to Clist. He's 4.5 seconds behind Paul Joseph Clist at the moment. In the time remaining, he can definitely catch that up because he is about a second a lap faster. It's pretty much pretty much like 6 or 7 laps remaining of this race. As in the lead, there goes Pereira through once again. He's just extended his lead by 0.5 of a second. So gap up to 0.8 now for Thiago Pereira, who was very strong in his heat actually, had good pace. And he managed to get straight through. And this B5 has been absolutely perfect for him. A fantastic launch. We haven't seen him miss an apex ever since.
Well, Nick Madsen's starting to look really racy back here. Look at him closing the gap with Kai Dalziel. Nose to tail here, going back onto the hanger straight. Should be a good draft here. It'll be interesting to see if he makes a move either going into Stowe or to Vale. But he's closed the gap up nicely here down to 0.3. Time to make a move maybe.
Yeah, it's certainly on the brakes there. He was really close, wasn't he, going through Chapel or whatever you call that corner. I sort of think of it as just the cut through, but it does sort of join on to where Chapel is around there. Or I guess you could call it the loop, but it's not really the loop, it's the corner after the loop. Anyway, Madsen very close around that part of the circuit either way, and once we get onto the power, it just extends a little bit, as is the concertina effect, as you see in all forms of motorsport. So nothing really obvious coming up for Madsen so far. But still, nice pace from these top 4 to continue to pull away now. 4.2 seconds clear of the next highest placed driver of Tim Balicki. Shout out, by the way, to Apex Racing Sim as well. Of course, Apex Racing UK having their sim centre in Corby in the UK, which isn't that far away from Silverstone. I think it's about 50 miles away. So that is where I am at the moment, of course. We have our studio, and of course we have several customer rigs as well. Of course, all prepped with VRS equipment. So if you want to try out VRS's equipment before making the plunge and buying it, certainly do visit the Sim Centre. You can just buy it straight away though from apexracingsim.com, where there are VRS equipment available for you to purchase, whether that be the wheel rim, the wheelbase, or the pedals as well. And of course for events as well, whether it just be with a few mates or something more corporate, Apex Racing Sim very much there to cater for your use. So check out apexracingsim.com, link in the description. As we see Pedro Espadina with a spin, and that is a shame for the Portuguese. He has dropped the best part of 5 places due to that error.
Well, picking up on your theme of religion, I suppose, that Chapel Corner, I think, is appropriately named because you're praying you get a good exit because you got that long hanger straight coming afterwards. And I'd even say Silverstone, back to your comments about this as a track, you know, if racetracks had the equivalent of cathedrals, Silverstone is clearly one of them. Just the size and scale and magnitude of this complex is, you know, sort of second to none. There aren't very many others. You sort of think about Suzuka maybe in Japan, Road America, in the States, but there just aren't complexes that can handle the volume of, and maybe Coda was designed a little bit with that in mind, you know, to be able to handle huge crowds. Lots of different kinds of racing types from, you know, Moto all the way up to Formula One. But it's just, you know, fantastic place to go worship the sport of racing.
It sure is, as we did just see Sergio overtake Stevens, but I mean, as someone who's been to this circuit on a few occasions, a couple of times for WEC, and also for Formula One as well, and a couple of other events as well, it's is certainly quite something. And of course, the revamp as well they made 15 years ago also really did allow that crowd capacity to increase, and constantly for Formula One. And that's some 500,000 tickets being sold across the weekend. It is quite incredible when you compare to other sporting events, and still good in the sim racing world as well. Wouldn't necessarily say that's the case with this layout, but iRacing clearly like the international layout, used up for the PESC qualifiers last year as well, and they were desperate clearly to use it for this season as well, and these drivers very much getting used to it during these races. We've got just 2 more laps to go, including this one. I don't think we'll quite get in another one after that, as here comes Madsen. It was that little bit closer. Can he go for it? He can't quite, just had to back out of it, and that tight line has lost him about a car length to Dalziel, but that's the closest the Danish driver's got to P2 all race long.
Yeah, this is where it's kind of the money time. Are you going to push the issue and try and take that next position, or are you going to be content being in the top 4 knowing you're going to go on to the feature final? He's looking quite racy there. It seems like he's pushing the issue, but maybe he's just showing his nose to try and drive in his mirrors and get Kai to maybe make a mistake, because capitalizing on somebody's mistake is a lot easier to make the overtake than forcing the issues we've seen with a couple other drivers, unfortunately, coming together in some of these corners.
Seemingly Bob Humphrey has come together, maybe with someone else, or maybe just with his own lack of talent, because spinning round on the hangar straight there was the British driver. Meanwhile, his teammate, Joseph Saul, is trying to, I think this is an overtake on Glenn Humberston. Well, he has apology, I think he's just defending. Oh no, there's been lots of changes recently anyway. Saul is in 6th position. He's back where he started in this race. Humberston there, and now Sedgley has rapidly closed up on these drivers. I think that was just Saul defending against Humberston. He's going to try to go for it again, a bit of damage on the front of a couple of these drivers. Here comes the move from Sedgley. He will be very pinched on the inside, and that was to be expected, honestly. He got on the curb, and Daniel Sedgley, after a nice recovery drive, drops many of those places he's lost earlier on. Here comes Madsen. He's so desperate for every single position he can get. Thiago Pereira is going to win this race, but for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, it is still up for grabs. Madsen on the outside. He's almost being forced off the circuit, but they keep it all neat and tidy. Here comes the undercut here from Balicki. Can he get 2nd right at the line? He cannot. Will he even get 3rd position? He does, by a matter of hundredths. A brilliant battle between the 3 of them, and Madsen does finish in 2nd position. Pereira manages to consolidate his way through. It didn't matter for a whole lot bar grid positions for the final, and that's a shame for it to end that way for Humphrey. A 2nd spin in as many laps, and he will limp that car over the line. A few championship points lost could be important at the end of the season. List finishes in 11th place. I think the top of the Olympus drivers in the end, with a late issue for Sedgley, and Copeland will be the last of the runners. But what a fight that was right at the end, Chad, between 2nd down to 4th. I said that Madsen wasn't going to settle for 3rd position. He absolutely sent it.
Yeah, we had to sacrifice a Balicki brother in order to make room for Madsen near the top. Otherwise, the top 4 kind of held station, changed order a little bit there. Fantastic racing, really close. Love seeing that almost three-way battle there going into the final corner. And there with Faria at the end, you kind of got the sense that he was just hell-bent on making a top 10. Like, I'm coming through one way or another, and he really fought hard to the end.
Yeah, terrific effort there from all those drivers to be able to get through, and well, we will have a slight breather now of 3 minutes. It's constantly coming out of these races, but this is our one opportunity to have a slight recap, and we can look at the previous results and have some estimations of what's going to happen when it comes to the A final. Rudinja so comfortable, really. I know that it was 0.3 of a second, but honestly, Costa was never within passing range, honestly. Rudinja, of course, fastest in qualifying earlier on. Chad, he was leading every lap in Heat 1. You know, whilst McCohen was strong in that Heat 2, do you think he's going to have the pace over the German to not only keep up, but to overtake as well?
I think so. I mean, I think, again, these are sort of proving yourself in a heat race to build on your qualifying lap times is one thing, but I think we can throw some of these top 5 and 10 results out once we get into the final heat. These guys are so closely matched that I think anybody in the top 10, you could argue, has a real fair shot when we see how much some of these guys have moved up. Look at Nick Madsen, who finished P12 in his heat, but then storms back to P2 there in the B final. He's going to be in the mix. Probably not in the top 10 to start, but we saw last week a few guys climb up from the sort of 10-15 spot range. A couple of them made it into the top 5, even podium. So and that was on a track where there wasn't nearly as much action going on here. So I think, particularly amongst the pro class, because we see them all clustered in the top 5 or 10 in both of these heat results, it's going to be a real good show here, I think, in the final.
I think, I hope that you're right, and I think you are right. McCohen there, just confirmation of that Heat 2 victory for himself, half second clear of Roma, Yanni with then third. Mario Velgert, of course, such a good driver. I will say that didn't look like Velgert quite had the same pace as top 3. It looked like the little bat thing that was going on ahead, that was keeping in play, but I hope to be proven wrong. I really hope that Mario can get in amongst them. He will be starting in 8th position, which seems unfair, but seeing that, like I said, he is an absolutely exceptional driver. In any other season, he would be probably on the front row of the grid, but just the competitiveness we have for this round 2 of the season. Philip Ham there, top of the prize, and of course Thorsten Seifert for the 2nd week in a row, the only Am in the A final, because none of them managed to get through from the B final, and he'll have a nice lead in the championship after tonight, whatever happens in the A final, because even when he finishes in 20th position, if that does happen, it will still be more points than what any of the amateurs scored in the B final. And there was the B final results. Pereira comfortably ahead, Madsen with that late overtake. We know if anyone's going to make moves in the A final, it is going to be the season 1 champion, the Danish driver of Nick Madsen. As the warm-up session is finished, a few drivers wanting to get a little bit of extra practice out there. We transfer now over to the grid for this A final, the 2nd A final of the season. And it is Leon Rudinger on pole position ahead of Luke McCohen. 2nd row of the grid is Costa and Roma. Behind that is Parker White, Michael Yanni. Dan Holland is top of the Pro-Ams, followed by Velgert, Cuenza. Hammer lines up in 10th, then it's Aidan Young, Julian Gere Zienheld. And then behind him is Roger Christiansen, who started up on the front row for his heat, but had an awful start. He'll be hoping for a good start to get back some of those places right now. There's Benzo, Lazarus, Seifert, Pereira, Madsen, Balicki, and Dalziel, rounding out the 20 cars. And we are just waiting for Nick Madsen, who is very customary for waiting to the last moment to grid up. And he's living up to that right now, because we have 4 seconds to go and he's still not there. But with 3 seconds to go, he is now on the grid, and our 20 drivers are all prepped for this 2nd A final of the season. Is Rudinger, who has led every moment of tonight. Can he take it all the way through these 28 laps in the A final? We are underway. It's an awful start for Luke McCohen, who is going to drop way down the order, potentially outside the top 10 potentially, because he has absolutely not got off the line. Rudinger leads. Behind that, not many changes besides that awful start for the Apex Racing team driver. 3 wide heading into turn 1. There is a driver off in the background. McCohen holding on to the inside into turn 3, holding back the likes of Velgert and Cuenza. Bit more smoke with a 2nd driver being spun round. Thiago Pereira having issues as well. Lazarus involved. Seifert was the initial one off the track. But McCohen's actually done a pretty good job there, holding on to as many places as he did. He's in 6th place, but a huge chasm forming between 5th and 6th as it stands, as still the British driver is having to go defensive against Mario Velgert. Further down, Cuenza in 8th position after his awful start in his heat. He's been pushed around, and now he's gone wide, and the car behind him was not clear. And Cuenza, our championship leader going into this round, drops as low as 17th.
That was quite the action-packed start there. I think we saw quite a few drivers pushing hard to get a little redemption from their earlier heats, maybe feeling like they could have done better. I looked at guys like Velgert, Madsen at the start, make sure they got better starts. Christensen, same thing. Some it seemed to work better for than others. Christensen struggling a little bit, dropping down to 15th, whereas Velgert's up to P7, so...
Yeah, that was nice work there from Velgert to gain the position that he did, and brings himself a little bit more into contention. Rudinger, by the way, with a 1 second lead. Madsen up a few places, he's up 5. Kai Dalziel up the highest place, when he's up 6. I say, I don't think Dalziel did a whole lot there. I think probably the move on Christiansen was legit, but then Costazza ahead of Balicki and Cuenza, Seifert, Lazarus and Pereira all with incidents, and pretty much all separate incidents as well. Fortunately, we didn't have an incident which deeply affected several drivers, as Velgert is now, apologies, this is Young on the defense. So Velgert very much going with McCohen, they'll hope to catch up to the lead pack by the end of this race, but it will be tricky for them to do so. 28 laps for this A final is one of the longest A finals we have during the season. But of course matching the PESC qualifier, so it really is good prep for these drivers using the exact same setups as what they will use on the Saturday evening race. But Aiden Young, under huge pressure into Vale, he's done a good job there. He's still in 8th place and top of the Pro-Am drivers.
Yeah, whether it's 22 laps or 28 laps, these are very much sprints, action-packed, non-stop, and I think we're seeing that here as well. Just like last week, it feels like the heats are prepped for this main feature. They felt each other out. I'm keeping my eye right now on Dalziel and Madsen, who battled close together in the final, the B final. They're next to each other now. Are they going to cooperate and use each other's speed and draft to move their way up, or are they going to fight like they did last time? I think the former probably bodes well for making progress up the field, as they're both up 5 and 6 spots. But, you know, you're not a racer if you're not competing with everybody who's on track with you. So it'll be interesting to see what kicks in here.
Yeah, I think they're just going to go for it, honestly. I don't think there's only going to be any passiveness between the pair of them. They're having a good race, though, because with this pack battling, they are going to be able to get onto the back. Oh, there's content. This could be a messy one. Oh, it's ever so lucky there for, was it Benzo? He took the corner, and I was waiting for him to be slammed from behind. But the two cars who made contact, Hammer was one of them, just about slowed enough. I think it was it Hammer and Madsen perhaps who made contact. Both completely lost control of their cars, full on locking the brakes and managing to come to a halt in quick enough time to avoid catastrophe for the other drivers. So still Young leading the way in the Pro-Ams, but it's now actually Dan Holland who is 2nd place out of the Pro-Ams. Actually down 5 places is Dan Holland. He had a much better heat, but a poor start in this race. Has recently gained a couple of places though, due to that mess earlier on this lap. Well, if Young thought he got away, he has certainly not, because once again, Joe, Zeneld, and now Benzo are all over the back of them. The 3 of them separated by less than half a second.
Well, I would call that opportunism, not cooperation, with Nick Madsen and Kai Dalziel, who both profited from that little contact back there. They're both now up 7 spots, and I think each picked up a spot when Holland and Hammer kind of went wide there.
Yeah, real nice work from the pair of them as Benzo moves past Joe Zeineld and is up to 9th position, up 5 places from his race start. And then we've got this fantastic snake of cars on the Hangar Straight, all following one another in the draft. Will make it that bit more tricky to overtake. When the car ahead, of course, has the draft a bit behind them. Philip Hammer under big pressure from Christiansen. Will Christian send it here? He's thinking about it. He's over the curb. And Hammer not going to be appreciating that one at all. He handled it well, though. And remains in that position. That's not going to handle well, though. Veliki into the wall. Christiansen into the wall. And I hope that these other drivers avoid them well. They do. But once again, that's just such a pinch point at the final corner.
Yeah, that kind of looked a little bit like Christensen was pushing maybe a little bit too hard there. Got his nose in on the entry of that first corner. Hammer's showing some incredible skills, saving his car now on a couple of occasions, having been tapped from behind. But some might call that karma when Christensen came back around on the Hamilton straight there. Just a little too much, lost it, went into the wall. Looks like neither car had too much damage, and they were able to get back on track and start running again. But question now becomes, do you have a little more red mist, or are you going to sort of take your medicine, calm it down a little bit, cool the tires off, and see where you can get yourself back up to?
Leon Windinja right now dominating. This is real impressive stuff. Of course, he had Pascal Costa behind him in his heat. Costa was able to stay within half a second for the entire race. But 1.1 seconds clear after 6 laps is an absolutely mighty achievement. And it looks like it's only getting bigger. He was 200ths of a second, a whole 200ths of a second faster on that last lap. And Rudinja surely in a fantastic stead to be able to get into the Contender Series if he can continue this pace. He's well clear of Costa. Costa well clear, honestly, of Roma as well. And Parker White, if he's going to be able to hunt down those top two, needs to make this move right now. And that's what he's trying to do. He hasn't been able to make it into Stowe corner. Remember, Roma overtaken by another Apex Racing driver earlier on when Luke McCone was able to get past. And you can see McCone in that white and blue livery catching up to these drivers in the background. There's some other battles as well. Benzo has finally got past Young. Nice work there from Benzo, who's had fantastic pace tonight, always on the overtake, it seems. And also on the overtake is Nick Madsen, and he's going to try to get past Joey Zaydaneld right now. Behind them is Holland, who's going to have a terrific run. I wonder if we will even see 3 wide into turn 1. Holland decides not to push it, but Madsen is up a place. Now there's contact. Holland unsettled the car, and the Danish driver, Joey Zaydaneld, was a completely innocent party.
I think that's 2 races in a row where that's happened to him on a fast corner like that. He's probably saying to himself, okay, I've had my fair share. Why don't you go touch somebody else?
Yeah, that's rough. Oh, here we go. That's a move. That's what we want to see. On the grass, Parker White. Little bit of contact as well mid-corner between the pair of them. I think Roma's going to have the better line. So far we've seen the drivers very respectful around Vale and Club. We're going to see the same thing here. A little bit less respect because he was pushing himself right out was Roma, but I think it was all fair. And McCone has actually got past Yanni in all of that. As Velguts has also had really good pace. I saw Velguts that time lining up in purple a moment ago. I think that wide line there though has just picked up him a slowdown, so he has dropped about a second off these drivers. But Luke McCone now up to 5th position. I imagine White won't fight him too hard, so if McCone could get a podium out of this after the shambolic start that he had, that would be a really amazing effort.
Yeah, things are really tight in the top 6 here. Not a huge gap separating, P3 and P6. And even there at the top, as long as they stay within 1.2, they're still kind of holding on, maybe with the, with the string to the draft range. And if they can keep that up and work in these trains, particularly the cars that are chasing, this race isn't over by any stretch of the imagination. We got a long way to go. It just takes one lockup into one of these corners or eating one of these sausage curbs to set you off just a little bit. And the next thing you know, you got somebody filling your mirrors.
And of course, the tyre wear could be a factor in this race as well. Do let us know actually any details when it comes to the tyres, and anyone who's familiar with sort of this race distance in the Porsche Cups, because it's a little bit longer than I think what the official series are used to, and around such a demanding circuit as this with a lot of long corners, could maybe see some drop off, and that could mix up the order and make those mistakes that you were mentioning before all the more possible for the drivers to make. There is the track temperature, 37 degrees. It's all staying very consistent at the moment. It's 22 degrees track temperature, air temperature approaches, but as the drivers pound around, that does increase the track temperature a little bit as well. It does increase the heat a bit, so that only decreases the grip even more for the drivers. White's a little bit closer this time, but again, not close enough for Vale. Behind them, Dalziel is under huge pressure from Hammer. Can Hammer find the inside into Vale? No, he's going to have to go the long way around. He is much later on the pits. This is where he came off second best a couple of laps ago. He comes out best this time, and he is up into 11th place. And Matteo Coenza, who was championship leader going into the turn, a lot of damage on that car after going off earlier on, and he's gone off again. And that is the second time we have seen that exact incident at the final corner.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of times where, the chasing car is behind 2. He decides to stick his nose in behind the one that looks like it's going to complete the overtake ahead, but doesn't quite clear the car that's being overtaken on exit. A little bit of track out there. I think he just closed the door on the exit vortex of danger there just a little too early and found himself into the wall.
It is just I think just a racing incident once again, and you very much summarised it very well in terms of following the faster car, but yeah, never quite clear. And the changes to the circuit are fairly positive, I think. Let us know on the chat as well. There's not much activity on the chat, but thanks everyone for tuning in. And of course, many drivers watching this back as well, I'm sure. A few drivers, I imagine, from the B final as well. Perhaps just tuning into this, seeing what happens in the A finals. There is a change there. Michael Yanni going past Parker White, so teammates, or they're not really teammates, but I mean, come on, they're both Apex drivers and both have very similar liveries. So Yanni moving past there. But yeah, do let us know in chats what you think of a couple of these incidents, and of course who you are supporting out on circuit. As Roma now 0.2 of a second clear of Luke McCohen, and McCohen could even go for a dive here into Stowe, but he was that little bit too far back. I wonder if we'll go for that familiar move, which of course he made on Roma in his heat at turn 3 on the outside. I think that might be his best chance.
Yeah, will history be repeating itself here or not? We shall see. I think back to your point about those 3 drivers, Parker, Michael, and Luke, who I would think of them maybe as racing cousins, not racing teammates, affiliated but still competitive. So it'll be interesting to see how much courtesy is extended and how much pressure is put down on the loud pedal to the right.
I wonder, as an Apex Racing TV driver, if I got into one of these races, that they'd let me past. I mean, I'd be ahead in the first place, obviously, but if that scenario was in there, I wonder if that maybe would be a role potentially. So
only if it let him get more time on the broadcast, I would suspect, right? Letting you by, if you give him a little more airtime, why not?
That's a very good shot.
Then they could take the position back and get twice as much airtime.
That's very true. And that's how we work here at Apex Racing TV, that we are very fickle and very easily convinced. So yeah, anything like that will very much get them in our good books. Cohen could not be close to that as he turns on the wipers again. I imagine that's a bit of rubber coming so close to the car ahead, which is getting on the windshield. He wants he can possibly get. I think he might be setting up a move here. 0.2 of a second. How good it is launched through turn 2. You can really push it hard. See this in MotoGP a lot, where they kind of can let out of the brake slightly through that turn 2, get on the power a bit earlier, gets them the inside for turn 3. Didn't happen that time. Might happen this time though. He didn't quite commit to it, and that's going to kill his run. Unfortunately, he's got one of his colleagues behind him of Michael Yanni. But McCohen finding it a little bit more tricky this time. He's still got another 14 laps though to make this one stick.
Well, you know he knows he's there because he's weaving a little bit on the hanger straight to try and break the draft. But I don't think that he's far enough back that breaking the draft that way is going to make a big difference. They are nose to tail here, so it really is just going to be about trying to find that opportunity where somebody either has a slip up, or as we start to see here, you know, McCown is just pulling right up to his bumper and waiting for that moment where he can pounce.
He's just, well, you know what? He is closer. No, apologies, he's further behind. I was looking at the wrong cap. It's actually Yanni who's particularly close. I think McCohen needs to be 0.2 behind going into turn 1. This time he was 0.3 of a second behind. The lap before he was like 0.23. So I think if he's just that little bit closer, then he will have a good run. It hasn't quite worked out for him so far. These guys now 5 seconds off the race lead. Udinja had his gap dropped a little bit by Costa, but actually pulled away by 1/4 of a second that last time round. As this is a bit more competitive. This is definitely within dive range now, and you can see Roman having to go on the inside, but he sold him the dub. He's got the inside now, has Luke McCohen. He's siding his way through. Yanni's going to have a fantastic launch on these 2 drivers. Is he going to go on the outside? He gets the inside for Vale. Now he had to back out of it in order not to pick up the slowdown initially. And Michael Yanni does take back that position that he lost a few laps ago to Luke McCohen. And there is a change, and that was the closest that the barriers of Roma have been broken so far.
Yeah, a little wobble there coming out of Stowe going into Vale. I think what those 3 guys showed is it is possible to go 2 by 2 into some of these corners and have the chasing driver squeeze through without incident. So nicely done there on all 3 of their parts to work together, be close, but keep from making contact as they complete the overtake.
And now we wait to see if Yanni can make more of an impression. Straight away onto the back, but I think he's going to be a bit too far back this time. Parker White, by the way, under pressure from Mario Velka. You can just see that behind these drivers. Parker having to go all the way to the inside, and they're all making a few extra corners for each other on the hanger straight. He's wide enough to be able to do that. And well, this would be a wonderful move from Mario Velget. And I was downplaying his chances earlier on because his heats, he was a little bit of a quiet 4th place, but that is more like it. A final, 6th position now from Mario Velget, and you're not going to have a much better looking overtake than that outside of Stowe. No problem for him. And Laurent Benzo is really catching up to these drivers as well. Benzo has had casually one of the best pace of anyone so far. He's just messed up his qualifying. I think he started down in 16th place for his heats and been playing catch up ever since. And with Roma having to continue to defend the way he is, he will be close to these drivers by the end. So here we go. Attempt number 10, 11, maybe 12 for Michael Yanni and Luke McCone to get past Malte Roma.
Yeah, not 1 but 2 on your tail. That's got to put some stress on Romer there. This is really the fight at the front because our front 2 positions have kind of opened up a nice healthy gap, so they're probably saving their tires and just managing the gap. These guys are fighting for a podium here.
Oh, he sent it. Here we go for Michael Yanni. Is he going to leave room? There's contact between the 2 of them. Yanni moves through, and it might be a double whammy as well because McCone is going to get the pair of them. Luke McCone up to 3rd position. And that was, well, incredible teamwork there from the Apex Racing team drivers. I don't think Roman will be too pleased with that one, and there was contact through Vale. And Roman knows he has to get back straight away, and McCohen knows he has to defend straight away. Roman's going to try to pull off the same move that McCohen did on him earlier on, and he's not far away from making it, but has got to back out of it. And dare I say, I think McCohen might be able to replicate what he did in his Heat 1 and pull away. Roma putting himself offline though through the cut through. He's trying to get right to the inside, and this one might get personal now between Yanni and Roma after already making contact on that previous lap. McCone giving his teammate as much of a slipstream as he possibly can. Here comes Velka as well, who has had phenomenal pace as this A final has progressed, and Roma might come out 2nd best as it's almost a carbon copy of what they were on the previous lap. But Velka's going to make it 3 wide. Is he going to send it? He probably does the wise thing there at backing out of it. This time no contact between Yanni and Roma through Vale, and Roma will hold it on the outside. Now we go into the dangerous final corner where we've seen so many incidents already. They make contact for the 2nd time so far in this race. But Yanni with the better exit, he'll have the inside for turn 2 despite having the outside for turn 1. But he gets on the dirt, loses a bit of adhesion to the circuit. And look at White, he's been able to benefit from this because Velgut has dropped back. White now making it 3 wide for Apex Racing Academy, and he bundles over the curb. Yanni might come out on top of this, but what an incredible battle we are seeing right now. It's 3 wide again through the cut through. Parker's surely going to make contact there, but it's Bio Academy who momentarily take back 4th position, and it's all going to start again when they go into Stowe.
I mean, we got to put a marker down at the 20-minute mark on this race. This is just full of highlights. How many times have we seen 3 cars navigating, you know, Stowe, Vale, and Club for the overtake? Here we've got 6, 2 gaggles of 3 back-to-back, and they're all just trading places, going 3 wide into some of these corners. This is unbelievable racing we're watching.
Well ended in a very disappointing fashion because Laurent Benso, under the radar, had been able to get his way almost to the front of that pack. But once he did, he absolutely locked the brake and he wiped out Malte Roma. Well, what a brilliant fight that was, and here was how it all ended. You can see in the middle there was the Frenchman, and he's just gone in way too deep. I think there might be damage as well. Like managing to get through it all right there. So McCohen in a comfortable 3rd place. Yanni managed to move through. Aiden Young got involved in that. So Young, I think, was detached from this pack, but he's up to 6th position now. And now White is trying to move his way through. So it has very much separated up, but it's still got a nice 4-car fight between these guys. Velgut was able to get through as well as Parker moves through. But you could see from, I think from Yanni earlier on, just how dirty it can be offline and how much grip that can lose these drivers. So outside of Stowe isn't necessarily the place that you want to be. The Academy driver managing to muscle his way through. And look at Nick Madsen as well. He was in the B final just a few minutes ago, and he now moves up into 6th as we have another incident at the final corner. That is the danger spot for these drivers, and that needs to be not that great rejoin, and it's Benzo involved in another collision.
I mean, this is nonstop action. It's hard to keep track of it all. As you were just calling our attention to Nick Madsen, he's up 11 spots. Really profited from all of that fighting. Was able to catch back up, and then of course a couple of these unfortunate incidents made some room for him to move on up into the top 10. He's up to P7, up 11 spots.
Dare I say, I think Laurent Benzo making a couple of enemies out here tonight. I think that one, similar to the first one, looks very black and white in terms of where the blame is laid. And Aiden Young, leading the Pro-Am category for so long in this race, no longer is doing so. It is Philip Hammer at the top for Impulse Racing. His teammates, Pascal Costa, up in second place, and actually his other teammate, Mario Velkert, up there in fifth place. It'll be a nice points haul for those guys tonight. Of course, 2 or 3 drivers per team. The top 2 drivers at each round scoring points, so you can very much win a championship as a pair. But that strength and depth is very useful if one of your drivers has a poor round. But Impulse Racing with a fantastic result right now, with 3 drivers up in the top 8 as it stands in this event. As before you know it, we are already in the final few stages. I will give another shout out, by the way, to Virtual Racing School. Of course, everyone knows Virtual Racing School software when it comes to developing setups and data packs to improve your performance on iRacing. However, they also are in the hardware department, of course, providing rigs and equipment for the ESR R1 championships. And also, and of course, those including their rigs, and well, on sale at the moment is their wheel rim, their wheel base, and their pedals as well. And I did mention earlier on that you can check out all of that from Corby, which Samili Kume did rightfully point out. No one knows where Corby is. I didn't know where Corby was until I moved here. And so it is in the middle of England, basically, is Corby. So do visit if you're in the Midlands, in the UK. But if you're not, just buy the Virtual Racing School equipment at VRS.com or Apex Racing Simulators, or ApexRacingSim.com as well. As we tune back in with Tiago Pereira, who's a Portuguese driver in 14th place.
Corby, the world-renowned global headquarters of Apex Racing.
The biggest, well, I mean, one of the biggest sim centers in the world. I mean, sim racing ought to be the top. I don't know what else Corby is famous for. I think we had like a steelworks here decades ago, but not anymore. That's the only other famous thing I think about Corby. It's very understated. Nice place though.
After all that action, it seems like they've sort of settled in here a little bit, just maybe taking a little bit of breather before that final push on the last 4 laps.
Yeah, it does seem to be that way. That gaggle from 3rd down to 8th that we've seen really drawn for most of this event. Sort of separating out now. And so it's these battles further down the order, which are the ones still existing. Tiago Pereira for Rakar Esports team. In 14th, only just ahead of Luis Belicki, who of course was able to get into the A final at the expense of his debutant sibling of Tim Belicki. And behind them is Roger Christensen. You wonder where Christensen would have been if it weren't for that awful race start in his heat. I do feel like he would have been in that big battle for 3rd position, but very much sets him back. Only starts this race in 13th position, and then also had to had another incident as well at the start of this race. And it has very much been a matter of trying to recover whatever positions he can do. As here comes Jerry Zaineld for 10th position. And this is Kai Dalziel, up 10 places, 2nd highest gainer of anyone so far in this race, with fiercely forward, up half the order from his starting place.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what the mentality of Kai is right now. Is he content having gone up 10 spots with a really strong showing here? Or Is he going to feel like, hey, I'm not giving up one spot at all? Up 9, up 10, is that a big difference? Or, does the double-digit gain really sort of factor psychologically into how he defends here?
Oh, here he goes. He wasn't defending on that occasion. It seemingly there's a bit of contact between the two of them. They'll both be able to make the corner. And it looked like Julian sort of backed out of that one, admitting his own guilt. But Aiden Young, who remember was fighting for a podium earlier on, an overall podium, and of course was way out in the lead in the Pro-Ams, he is catching up and could well help out his fiercely forward teammate if he can get involved. And he is bringing a few friends along with him. Laurent Benzo, who's kept his car clean, as here comes another dive now for the ARA Academy driver. And this is going to really slow these drivers up. They've got 2 more laps to go after this one before the checkered flag is waved. And this is certainly the battle that is most likely to change. However, also Nick Madsen being caught by Philip Hammer a little bit further up. That could still change. And also Velgut being caught by White. But this one could change imminently, as right to the inside of the circuit. A brilliant overtake there from Julian, and no cutback available for Dalzil because Julian was able to get it stopped absolutely perfectly on the apex. And despite Fiercely Ford's best efforts, it looks like the ARA Academy driver is going to score top 10.
Yeah, it's almost like Julian saw his teammate coming up in the rear and said, if I don't make my move now, I'm going to find myself in a sandwich here. A fiercely forward sandwich.
Yeah, I think that's a very good shot with the attack from behind. It was then or never, really, because, yeah, you were absolutely being dived by Young, who, let's face it, is probably in a mental state to have a dive, even potentially on his teammate, after the unluckiness he had earlier on with contact with one of the other drivers. It was the French driver, wasn't it? It was Benzo, who's actually out of the race. I was looking for Benzo on the timing tower. That's why I forgot where he was. And he's down to 19th, so he must have been involved in something else there, Benzo, or maybe even reaching the instant limit. To be fair, they are limited to just 17 instants to match the official series. This is the other battle that I was mentioning is raging on. Nick Madsen versus Philip Hammer. These two battling quite extensively between each other, actually, last season in season 7. And they are battling once again in this season 8. Hammer's going to have probably one chance at Stowe in order to get that top 7 place.
Well, I tell you, after watching this race, I'm making a mental note the next time I have to run this track with this car and configuration. Really got to practice going into Vale and Club with some AI or something, because it's been so close, 2 wide, 3 wide, lots of contact. So those who can manage the contact and keep hold of the car seem to be the ones who are prevailing, whereas when things get a little bit loose, lockups, you have more significant contact. We've seen quite a few, positions change there in those 2 corners.
We sure have, but no position changes for this man. Leon Rudinger dominates at Silverstone. Overall pole position, led every lap in his heat and every lap in the A final as well. He has got the Silverstone International circuit down to a T. He beats Costa and McCohen, who had a good recovery, but really didn't get to see what McCohen's pace was truly like out there due to a shambolic start from the front row of the grid. Philip Hammer finished top of the Pro-Am drivers. Thorsten Cypher is going to finish top of the Am drivers. Maybe not quite the race that Thorsten was looking forward to, but with the 2 retirements for Benzo and Cuenza, Cypher does get some nice points, and that's 2 amateur victories for him to start off this season. So a very nice result for him there for the team FR13 DA Sports machine. And of course, yeah, Benzo and Cuenza, the 2 retirements right there. Already the drivers are across the line, so we may as well just go through the race results right now, and then we'll go into our interviews, because that was a longish A final. Of course, based on distance are these A finals rather than time. So around a fairly slow speed corner with or slow speed circuit compared to Hockenheim at least. Was a slightly longer A final, but there is Rudinger, top of the results, 2.6 seconds clear of Pascal Costa. Both of them looked very strong out there. Luke McCohen, I think, actually was starting to close in at the end, but McCohen really needs to sort out those starts because he cannot afford that on Saturday with the points that he needs to get into the Contenders Series. Then it is Michael Yanni, Mario Velgert, Parker White, and Nick Madsen. Philip Hammers was top of the Pro-Ams, followed by Matteo Roma. Remember, he was in a terrific battle. Really good defense there from Roma, just lacking a little bit of pace in comparison to a couple of the drivers near the front. Then Julian Jerry Zeineld, he was involved in battles throughout for Fire Academy, apologies. Behind him was Kai Dalziel, Aidan Young, Tiago Pereira, Luis Belicki, Roger Christensen, Dan Holland, Corey Lazarus, Thorsten Seifert, Laurent Benzo, and Matteo Cuenza, who was championship leader against this round, but was involved in an incident on lap 1 at Stowe, and then midway through the race was involved in an incident at the final corner as well, which ended his chances at a decent result. We will have a chat with some of our drivers now, and well, the only driver who's so far joined us is Mr. Aidan Young, who joins us in the comms box now. Aidan, unlucky out there, honestly. You seem to have really good pace. You're batsing it with the top guys, and unfortunately it seemed like an incident which is out of your control, sort of ruined your chances there. But I mean, when you look back on tonight, can you at least take some satisfaction from some of those early A final battles that you were involved in?
I can definitely take some highs out of today's race, although it would have been nice to win, but I think one of the guys, he just wasn't willing to give it up and just tried to stick it on the inside of me when I was already turned into the corner, and it ended up taking me out of the lead. So at least I still finished third and still got a podium out of it. There were 2 podiums today, so P2 from the heat and then P3 from the feature. But it was really fun battling with, like, you know, some of the best sim racers in the entire world, like Parker White, and you got Michael Yanni and Luke McEwen, and it was just, or Luke McEwen. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong if you're watching, Luke, but it was, I just can't believe that I was getting to battle with you guys. That was just insane for me.
Don't apologise about Luke's name, because I've heard from other members of Apex Racing team that Luke himself pronounces it wrong. So you can't get it wrong, basically, if Luke can't get it right. Apparently, that's what I've heard, at least. So that was yeah, of course, some really good battles, and of course it looked like at that midway stage, when it was all kicking off in front of you, you gained an insane amount of time. I mean, is there a much better feeling in sim racing when, you know, you got that? It must have been a pack of, what, 5 cars just absolutely going at it, and you seem to be catching them at about a second on that. That must have been very exciting to see those guys kind of fall into your lap.
Yeah, it was exciting for sure when I saw that I was catching them, but then, you know, once you get there, it got a bit scary because you saw how they got together. One of them ended up crashing, and I was like, am I gonna avoid this, or am I gonna get piled up in it? And thankfully I managed to avoid it, but then obviously that's when the one guy, he just didn't want to wait another corner. He tried to pass me after I'd already turned in, and ended up spinning me out straight towards the wall, and sadly I just couldn't save it. But, you know, I can take the highs from this race and take them into the next race, and hopefully next week we can come away with the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, next time we are heading to Red Bull Ring, the national layout. Dare I say, I'm not a massive fan personally of the Grand Prix layout, honestly, at Red Bull Ring. What's your thoughts of the national? I mean, that turn 2 is, when I've seen it in the past, just dive bomb City. Honestly, it's such a wide turn in, and it's sort of a bit of a unique one. What's your general thoughts of that circuit?
Oh, you can call me a bit weird if you want for calling the circuit challenging, but it is a challenging little circuit because it's like you got like little elevation changes in some of the corners, and you have to be careful putting the power down there with these cars because the track surface, it's a bit slippery, I guess, from where it's just so hot at that track all the time, whether it be in sim or when you go in real life.
I certainly agree, you know, with the idea that it's a tricky circuit. Yeah, I've certainly struggled there in the past, and yeah, with the braking zones, how sort of precise you got to be through turn 1, and with the off tracks as well. Yeah, it's certainly one you're going to have to do a lot of practice for, but I'm sure you're going to be near the top once again, Aiden, for that event. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we say goodbye?
Yes, I would like to thank my team, Fiercely Forward, for cheering me on, supporting me, helping me to be best driver I can be. Obviously, ever since I left the No Limits, they've kind of helped me take that next step in sim racing to kind of get there a little bit faster, get faster each time I go out on the virtual racetrack, and they have helped me improve my racecraft and my qualifying pace, and I just can't thank them enough for that. And then I'd like to thank my teammate Kai Dalziel for doing the series with me. We'll both get a lot of fun out of this series when doing it, because it's just, there's a lot of fast drivers, and knowing that when you have pace and you can keep up with them, it just gives you a good feeling, and you just want to have fun. Each time you show up, you always have fun. And racing, you do it to have fun, but also to be serious, because when you show up, you want to win.
Definitely, yeah, very well said. Aiden, it's great that you had that mindset, and yes, we can certainly testify. It's been great to see yourself improve as much as you have over the course of sort of the start of Season 7 of this, and then, of course, yeah, to see you up there with some 9K drivers is absolutely fantastic to see your progression. So congratulations out there, and yeah, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Aiden Young there. Like I said, yeah, just rapidly improving is Aiden, and it's only going to be a matter of time until he's going for the Contenders Series himself. But Chad, really fantastic round tonight. Next up, like I said before, we have got Red Bull Ring. Have you got any experience on the national layout? I mean, personally, I don't think I've done any races there, honestly. We did broadcast, of course, that car track combination because it was on the qualifiers last year as well. But I mean, in terms of being used in the official series, it's a very rare one.
Yeah, I have raced it. Reminds me a little bit of, the shortened track there at Hockenheim as you come through, as you said, that turn 2. Difference being obviously downhill, a wider entry, and it's downhill all the way and a little tighter. So I'll be curious to see if as people go through there, will we see the same kind of overtakes we saw at Hockenheim, or are we going to see trouble? Because that's most likely where it's bound to happen. The rest of the track people will be familiar with, but that change in configuration and strategy is going to be one to watch next week.
That turn 2, I feel like last season was absolute chaos there. Like, it's on lap 1, it's a bit of a mare. You can really dive there as well by taking like an early apex rather than kind of taking the sweeping line, so you leave a lot of room on the inside. Everyone should watch that race, basically. It's the main overtaking spot as well. It should be really good. So that will be next week, of course, on Apex Racing TV. But we have several other events as well going on throughout the week as well. We've got Radicals on Friday, we've got Formula 3 on Friday as well. We've got the Spec Racer Ford and the of course the Formula Fords as well on Sunday. We've got Apex Racing League GT3 Trophy on Tuesday and iRacing Israel on Monday as well. So basically just subscribe to Apex Racing TV and you can see all the action that's going on. Of course, do please leave a like on this video as well, and do check out our social media platforms as well on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook for extra content on our events. But for now, from myself, Sam Fitzpatrick, from Chad Dick and from Samuli Kumo, we are going to say goodbye, and we will see you back next week at the Red Bull Ring for round 3 of the championship. See you then.